we're going to go ahead and talk to Mark, who's calling in from North Carolina. Mark, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, what's up, man? Great to talk to you again.
Yeah, how could we help?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make a brief comment. This isn't going to be a very long call, but we were talking about free speech earlier, and I just wanted to point out that when it comes to Twitter censorship or censorship anywhere, you also talked about, we're not allowed to yell fire in a movie theater. Slander is also a punishable crime.
That's right. And libel.
Yeah, that's right. So while we here in America may have the freedom of speech, we do not always have the freedom to be heard. Mm-hmm. That is something that can be taken away if we are, spouting things, inconsistency, violently, if we are advocating for some kind of violent actions or things like that. We could be removed from these public places, right? I mean, it's no different than somebody yelling and screaming in a town hall meeting and then being escorted out.
Yeah,
it's akin to that. It's akin to that.
Yeah, this is kind of an extension of this. Like, there's a consequence to speech, right? Like, you're free to say it, but that doesn't mean there isn't consequence. And like, that's true to an extent. Like, there's consequences now because a lot of us feel the same way about it, but it didn't used to be that way. Like there was a lot of people that were openly and flagrantly racist, and there was no problems with that, right? Like, there weren't any consequences really for doing that because everybody else was also kind of racist. And so, that being an institution in our society.
The people who were against racism in certain places were in the minority, so they didn't have the power to shut the other people up.
Yeah, it's more like if you could have a sign on your door that said "No blacks allowed," and there were no real social repercussions for that outside of, like, you could do that and you could run your business. And obviously people complained, like, eventually we got to where we are now, but like, it wouldn't be the same as if you did that in 2021. If you did that in 2021, someone would take a picture of that, would upload it to Twitter, and then, people would go crazy. But like, that's a result of the values that we have now. So like, I don't know if when we see an injustice, if our own natural consequences, if our own response is going to be enough. And also, there's some stuff that like we can't even control outside of, as like private citizens, right? Like Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, we were talking about this earlier, all have these algorithms that are going to share certain stuff that we would rather not share. I would want to say no. I would want to mute or ban or do something to, but like, unless we manipulate that algorithm in some meaningful way, it's going to go out there regardless. And
right,
we can't change that. Only if you have the access to the switches and buttons in that company, we can't change that, even though there's going to be real harm. And that's already been demonstrated. There's already evidence of that. So that's why I'm thinking more about this and thinking, maybe companies do have a responsibility. Maybe there is a corporate responsibility. I'm more open to that now than I was before, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's not the best way. I don't know. Joey, what do you think?
Yeah. I would agree. We went down this before. It's like, we want to minimize harm. And we, especially with stuff like Snowden, we also know the capabilities of the government to do things we disagree with, and of the importance of a free media. And of course, I can't remember if I've brought it up on while we were live, but manufacturing consent and what that means. Like we've always said, like, or the lefties always say, just these tools that are used to censor the dangerous right wingers will also be used in ways that are to censor just progress on the left. And this is where a lot of it's like, it feels like one of the ways forward is to have a lot of the individual difficult conversations outside of this, and the de-radicalizations of these troubled people, as well as doing putting pressure on these companies. I mean, if someone's and the squad has talked about this a lot, you know, they've gotten death threats so many times on the internet, and nothing comes of it. Like to pretend that there is a a board of people on Twitter protecting their users from these threats of violence, that's just totally not the case. Like when something blows up, it gets dealt with in a nice, proper PR way, but it's not they're not actually, I don't know, they're not our friends. And
have historically not been the people, the ones. We're not the protected ones, right? The average user in general isn't the protected ones. It seems like there's a profit motivation. I don't. That's just. It sounds cynical. It sounds awful, but there is so much evidence of that. I don't know why anyone would think otherwise at this point. Now, I did see this week, I don't know if you saw this, Joey, but Facebook is officially not recommending any political, I think it was political groups on Facebook, or they're not doing it, showing up in any of their ads, which is interesting. That's one way to do it, because I will say this, out of all the social media sites, Facebook has definitely been one of the most responsible for aggregating the greatest number of QAnon supporters. There were so many QAnon groups before they tore a lot of those down this past year that, again, just way too little, way too late. People were already radicalized, and people were already ready for the attack that just happened recently.
But so, do you remember when the YouTube rabbit hole thing happened and got publicized, and they talked about there was a time where they would steer you if you started to go down something that wasn't normal neoliberal order. They would like try to bring you back, like watch some CNN, watch some MSNBC. Like, this is what you really need to be doing. Like these nudges also hurt the left and the type of criticism that we are trying to cultivate. So
the YouTube stuff's crazy too, because that was happening for so long, and they still didn't change stuff until like a couple months later, I think. That was like 2 years ago now, I think. I don't want to be inaccurate in any of my statements about it, but that was the thing that happened, right? What you're talking about, for those who aren't aware, is it was just discovered that a lot of conspiracy videos were being recommended at a pretty rapid rate, along with other not so savory stuff that I wouldn't dare mention on air. And it was, a marked path, a trail was blazed for radicalization. It was right there on YouTube and had been there for a while. So,
and I do want to clarify, I think that is awful, and we need to do everything we can to not create these. It's the incentive structures that result in that being what the algorithm chooses. Like, there's some line of succession of videos that makes you glued to the screen and turns your brain into a bowl of mush. And
well, here's what we do, Joey. We write to YouTube and we say, "Dear YouTube, I want all of the videos to point to Truth Wanted episodes. Every single video on YouTube should be a couple of degrees separation from Truth Wanted." And then
if they disagree,
they'll be fine.
Well, and if they disagree, you say, "Oh, you hate truth." Okay.
Oh, you hate truth. Are you violating my free speech right now? That's what I'll just say.
And they'll be like, "No, it's not. No, we'll do it."
Well, here's
perfect.
Here's something to point out. Here's something to point out, just real quick, Dan. Is that even on your own stream, you have a moderator deleting messages.
Yes,
right? It's the same concept. It's where, if you are on this platform, if you are speaking to these groups of people,
yes,
you don't have.
Here's the difference, though. I have a stream of a couple hundred different people watching. I don't own a multi-billion-dollar social media platform with millions of users. I think that's kind of different because I'm totally fine with moderators doing their job and getting people out that aren't going to contribute to the discussions and goals that we have as a group here. But if we want to do this on a mass scale where we're regulating what has essentially become a public utility at this point, right? Because who doesn't have at least one social media account, even if they're not using it, it's out there, then that becomes a different conversation, I think. But yeah, mods doing their jobs on this stream. Good job, mods. Shout out to the mods. Thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
But I hear what you're saying, Mark. It's
behind the scenes over there at Truth Wanted.
Yes, go and everybody on the Facebook group as well. You guys are awesome. That fan page, which we'll link in just a second. But Mark, we got to wrap up the show here. Thanks for calling in about this.
Yep.